My name is Jakob Torfing. I'm a professor in public administration and politics at Roskilde University in Denmark, a country far, far away from Indonesia. I'm also the founder of something called the Roskilde School of Governance that was founded in 2003 and is very interested in public administration, public governance, and especially collaborative governance and how collaborative governance can drive efficiency, democratization, innovation, and also what we call robust governance. What I will want to talk about today is about how to construct a research paper and how to get it published. So I come from a small country, Denmark, far away. And sometimes if you come from a small country like mine, or maybe a big country like yours, but a developing country, you may have this idea that if I do a study based maybe on a case analysis, I will have a hard time ever getting my article or paper published anywhere, because the big publishers, the big journals, they only want, studies from main Western countries, very developed countries like the US and the UK, Australia, etc. But I want to tell you, this is not true. To get published, well, everybody can get published. To get published, you need to make a contribution. And this counts for everybody, whether you come from UC Berkeley in California, or from London School of Economics in Britain, or from Roskilde University in Denmark, or Universitas Indonesia in this country. You have to make a contribution with your research paper or article. And how do you know if you have made a contribution? Well, when you have finished a paper, you have to read it carefully and ask yourself, is there something new? Will a potential reader find something in this paper that is new, that nobody really knew before this paper was written and read? That is a contribution. And a contribution can be new concepts that were never there before, maybe even put together in a new theory that can do new things in terms of analysis. Or it can be new method or a new way of using a method to give you new results that we couldn't have before the method was developed and applied in this way. Or it could be new insights into the mechanisms of the world. Just to be sure, it is not enough simply to describe a case, something that happened in a particular place over a certain period of time, and this was how it all went, and this was the result. That is not a contribution in itself. The case study must contribute to development of theory, method, or produce new insights that are generalizable. That is to say, that will have a relevance beyond an application, beyond the case in question. That is so important. Okay, next question for me is then, how do you make sure to develop a contribution in your exam paper or research paper or thesis or whatever we are talking about? So to make sure that you are making a contribution, it is a very, very good idea to start with a problem. And what is a problem? A problem can be something that is a problem in the world, something that affects many people and is important for the development and of society and the welfare of the citizens. But a problem can also be a problem for science because, we don't really understand this. This is really strange. We thought it would be A, but it's really B. How come? How can this be? The best thing is actually if you can point to something that is both a problem for society and a problem for research or science in terms of being hard to understand or solve. Let me give you an example. The World Bank not long ago calculated how much money it will take for the global south to achieve all the sustainable development goals that were agreed upon unanimously by the United Nations some years ago. And the World Bank calculated that it would take a huge amount of money to achieve all the sustainable development goals in the global south. And at the same time, they calculated that governments in the global south would only together have this small amount of money. So they pointed out in a report that there's no way that governments in the global south can go it alone. That means they cannot achieve the sustainable development goals without mobilizing private actors and civic actors and getting funding from citizens, NGOs, philanthropists, big corporations, the private sector. So this called for a new concept, and the World Bank started to talk about blended financing. Blended financing is when you finance a collaborative projects aiming to achieve the sustainability goals, and you try to finance it by combining multiple funding streams: public, private, civic, international, big donors, etc. Crowdfunding can also be a way of funding sustainable development goals or their achievement, because crowdfunding is to ask, the anonymous mass of people, like private people or rich people or corporations, hey, please, all of you make a small contribution. And if we have many contributions, we will be able to fund our collaborative project. So this begs the question, what kind of blended financing will really work to achieve the sustainable development goals? We don't know. It's an important societal question, but we really don't know in science and in research what is the answer. Should it be government together with one or two NGOs? Should it be big international donor organizations together with local business? Or should we do crowdfunding? We don't know. So this is a problem both for society and for research. And therefore this problem is a good starting point for doing research. So I'm arguing here that research should be problem driven, not driven by a particular theory that you have fallen in love with, not driven by a particular method that you so much like, but driven by questions and problems in the real world that are also problems for research and science. And if you start with a problem, you will often end up making a contribution, because when you answer a question that you don't have the answer to, when you use theory and method to answer a question, you will come up with something new that will be a contribution. Let me say one more thing, and this is how to transform this into a research paper or an article that is publishable with the best and finest journals or publishing houses in the world. So what you will do in such an article or book chapter is that you will start, of course, with an introduction. The introduction should be structured in the following way. Listen carefully. First, you will give a little background to the problem that I talked about before, and then you will explain how the nature of the problem, how it is a problem for society and for research. Then you will translate this analysis of the problem into the most important thing in the research article or book chapter, namely a research question. And a research question has to be short and clear and ask an open-ended question. Not a question that you can answer yes or no, but often a question like, could this happen? Or what kind of blended financing is most efficient or successful in driving collaborative governance for sustainability transition? When you have clearly stated your research question, you will have to tell the reader how you will answer it. What kind of theory, what kind of method, what kind of data will you muster to answer the question? And after that, you will simply tell the reader what to be expected in the rest of the article or book chapter, like a little content explanation, explain the structure of the article. The next section in a research article will be theory, because now you have to explain what kind of theoretical framework will you draw upon, What kind of concepts, what kind of hypothesis, what kind of theory will you draw upon in order to answer your research question? So the whole point is that the research question will dictate the choice of theory. And you must show in the beginning of the theoretical section, you must show how with this research question, it is a very good choice to start with this theory. And you must explain the key concepts and define the key concepts of the theory, show how they relate to each other, show how there will be certain hypotheses or mechanism or ideas at the theoretical level that can help you to analyze your research question. Sometimes one theory will not be enough. Then you show that we will benefit from combining this theory with another theory. And you must show how these theories work together to produce concepts and ideas that can help to structure really the empirical analysis. The third section will be method section. And again, the research question will dictate the methods applied in your study. So you have to show with this particular kind of research question, these methods are the most suited, the most appropriate to do this type of analysis. But you also have to show that your method is aligned with your theory. So both the research question and the theory will have an impact on your choice of method. And in the method section, you have to clearly explain what kind of data will you collect, how will you analyze the data. If it's a qualitative study, you will have to show how you use a coding to analyze the data. And you also have to discuss questions like validity and reliability of your study. And also, most importantly, discuss the challenges or the problems and show how you, in a very good way, try to solve the problems and challenges. Because this brings you beyond what I will call textbook level, where you're just repeating something that is already there in a university textbook. Then comes the analysis, where you want to really exploit the richness of your data set that you have analyzed to present the empirical findings. So the empirical findings section is the fourth section. You have the introduction, theory, method, and then you have the findings sections. And in the findings section, you simply, as clearly as possible, tell what did I find when I analyzed the data I collected. And then you summarize all the findings in the end in a kind of conclusion. And then after that, you have a new section in your paper, which is the discussion sector. What do you do in the discussion sector? Well, you first, again, clearly summarize your finding. And then you open up for a discussion of, oh, was I surprised with this finding? Was it expected, this finding? Is it aligned with other research that is in the same area? And also, what is the implications of this finding? Will this finding be interesting for government at the national, regional, or local level, or for some other stakeholders? How is this insight produced relevant to society and to the world? Yeah. And you will also often talk a little about, what were the strengths and weaknesses of your analysis. So how much can we actually trust those results that you found that are more or less expected or more or less aligned with existing literature? And then comes in the end the conclusion. And the conclusion will, first of all, answer the research question in a very short and crisp way, so that you have proven that you have actually, done what you should to answer the research question. And then you will have to discuss the contribution. Yeah, the contribution. And it's kind of your job in the conclusion to say, this conclusion has a major impact because it means that we now know this in science that we didn't know before, or that we are now better equipped to deal with this societal question that we started out with focusing. And when you have discussed the value added or the contribution of your paper or book chapter or thesis or whatever, then in the end you will have to draw up or sketch out a research agenda for the future. because research is what we call cumulative. We stand on each other's shoulders, as just as your paper or chapter or thesis was standing at the shoulders of other researchers and other theories and methods. You now have to provide some inspiration for future generations and other researchers. And you do that by saying, oh, this study was nice and good and provided new contribution, but there's still more work to do. And here is like 3 or 4 things that we should consider to focus on in new research. And then you can see the process will start all over again. What is the next problem that will drive a contribution, and what should be the in the introduction, the theory, the method section, the findings, the discussion section, and in the conclusion sections. And this is how we work in science and in research, and good luck with that.